The exploration ship Solace drifted into orbit above a silent planet. From space, the world looked calm, its surface covered with red deserts, silver lakes, and endless plains of shining stone. But every warning beacon in orbit screamed danger. The crew watched the signals in silence. They were not ordinary signals, but ancient warnings written in the languages of dozens of alien races. Some were carved onto drifting satellites. Others were sent as repeating messages in every known frequency. All carried the same meaning: do not land. Radiation will melt flesh. The aliens on the ship whispered to each other. They had read stories about this place in their own cultures. Some called it the burning grave. Others called it the dead star's child. The warnings were older than their history, yet no one had ever dared to test them. The captain of the ship, a tall being named Vaer, turned to the human members of the crew. His silver eyes narrowed with worry. "This world is poison," he said. "The ground is alive with invisible fire. If we step down there, our bodies will fall apart." The human crew did not answer at once. They had heard such warnings before. Space was full of hostile places, gas giants with crushing winds, frozen moons that could freeze steel, suns that burned hotter than fire. And yet, humans had always found ways to survive. Among them stood Erin, a young researcher. She was not the strongest on the ship, nor the highest ranked, but she had something else, curiosity that never dimmed. Her eyes studied the planet with fascination, not fear. "Radiation," she said softly, almost to herself. "We've faced it before. Earth had it. Old wars left it behind. We learned to walk among it." The aliens stared at her in disbelief. To them, radiation was death without mercy. There was no shield strong enough, no medicine quick enough. Where it touched, it destroyed. But Erin only smiled faintly. "This world is not warning us away," she said. "It's calling to us." The captain shook his head. "You do not understand. Even your suits will not protect you for long. The ground itself shines with killing light." Still, the ship descended. Engines roared softly as they broke through the thin clouds and hovered above the land. The crew gathered at the viewport, staring at the surface below. The desert stretched like an ocean of glowing red sand. Strange black spires rose into the sky, shaped like the teeth of some long-dead beast. Pools of liquid silver shimmered in the sunlight, reflecting blinding rays. The sensors screamed warnings, radiation levels far beyond safe measure. "Nothing should live here," whispered one of the alien crew. And yet, something had left signs. Scattered across the desert were ruined stone towers half buried in sand, carvings etched into rock, and shattered machines that no one could recognize. Once, long ago, someone had lived here. Someone had walked the very ground that now promised only death. The landing platform extended. The crew prepared their suits, heavy armor lined with shielding layers. Every alien moved slowly, as if dressing for their own funeral. But Erin did not rush. She looked at the planet, at the glowing horizon, at the silent ruins. A wild thought grew inside her, one she did not share. When the platform touched down, the air shimmered with heat. Radiation meters beeped wildly. Every alien stiffened in terror, feeling as though invisible knives were already cutting through their suits. The captain's voice was heavy. "Remember, do not stay long. Gather samples and return. No one removes their suit. No one." The crew nodded. All except Erin. She stepped out onto the sand, her boots sinking softly into the red grains. The heat pressed against her, but it did not frighten her. She unlatched her helmet. The aliens gasped, their voices breaking into sharp cries. "Stop! You will die." But Erin did not stop. With calm hands, she removed the helmet and lifted her face to the burning sky. The light struck her skin, harsh and merciless. The meters screamed warnings, Yet her body did not weaken. Instead, she smiled, as though the rays were no more dangerous than sunlight on a summer's day. She kept going. Piece by piece, she stripped away the heavy suit, until she stood in simple clothes, exposed fully to the world that no alien dared touch. Then, before their wide eyes, she lay down on the warm stone and stretched her arms as though resting at a beach. The crew stood frozen. The radiation should have melted her flesh. It should have torn her cells apart. But Erin only closed her eyes, breathing deeply, her face calm and content. For the first time in countless ages, the Forbidden World had found someone who did not fear it. And the galaxy was about to learn what it truly meant to be human. Every alarm screamed inside their helmets. The air was poison, the ground dangerous, the sky filled with invisible fire. To them, this world was nothing but certain death. And yet Erin, the human researcher, lay calmly on the red stone as if she were resting in a safe meadow back on Earth. Captain Veer gripped the railing of the landing platform so tightly that his silver hands shook. "She is mad," he whispered. "No living being can endure this." But Erin was not writhing in pain. She was not even weak. Her chest rose and fell with steady breaths. Her skin, instead of burning, seemed to glow faintly under the harsh light, like stone warmed by the sun. One of the alien engineers, Tal, stared at the monitors, his voice trembling. "Radiation level, impossible. She should already be gone." The others shifted nervously. Fear battled curiosity in their hearts. They wanted to run back into orbit and never return, yet they could not take their eyes off the human lying in the open. Erin opened her eyes and sat up, brushing red dust from her arms. Her hair moved lightly in the dry wind, and her smile was calm, even playful. She looked at her companions, their wide alien eyes pressed against their helmets, and laughed softly. "You see," she said. "The world is not as deadly as you fear." Veer stepped forward, his voice hard. "You risked your life without permission. You disobeyed orders. Return to the platform at once." But Erin shook her head. "No. Look around you. This planet was once alive. There are ruins. There were people. Maybe they were like us. Maybe they found a way to live here. Someone must understand how they survived. And maybe humans share that same strength." The aliens murmured among themselves. None dared to remove their suits, but Erin's words planted doubt in their certainty. If humans could survive here, then perhaps everything they had believed about this planet was wrong. Erin stood and walked further from the platform. Her steps left faint prints in the red dust, prints that glowed briefly before fading. The strange stone reacted to her touch, as though welcoming her presence. The aliens followed her with scanners. The radiation meters still flashed red, but the longer she stayed outside, the less dangerous it seemed. It was as if her body was not resisting the radiation but absorbing it. Veer struggled between duty and wonder. He wanted to drag her back inside, but something told him this act was greater than one human stubbornness. It was proof of something older, something hidden in human nature. Tal finally spoke, his voice quiet but full of awe. "Perhaps this is why humans are feared. You are not fragile like the rest of us. You thrive where death should reign." Erin knelt beside one of the ruins, brushing dust away from a half-buried carving. The stone showed symbols unknown to any of their databases. Lines curled into circles, shapes repeated again and again, patterns like the path of a star across the sky. She touched the carving with her bare hand, and the symbol glowed faintly under her fingers. The crew gasped. "It responds to her," whispered one of the alien scientists. "The ruins are alive." Erin's voice was calm, thoughtful. "Maybe it is not the ruins that respond to me. Maybe it is the world itself." The wind rose, carrying a deep humming sound across the desert. For a moment, the aliens thought it was the engines of their ship. But the hum did not come from metal. It came from the ground. The planet seemed to be speaking in a low voice, as if waking from a long sleep. The red dust swirled around Aaron, forming patterns in the air. The aliens tightened their grips on their tools, fear spreading through them. But Aaron stood tall, raising her face to the sky, her eyes reflecting the strange silver lakes in the distance. She did not fear the sound. She did not fear the dust. Instead, she whispered, "You were waiting. Weren't you?" No one knew whether she was speaking to the ruins, the planet, or to some ancient presence unseen. But the humming deepened, and the carvings on the nearby stones began to glow brighter, like embers touched by wind. The aliens panicked. "We must leave. This place is alive, it is dangerous." But Erin turned to them, her voice steady. "No. This is not danger. This is welcome." The crew looked at her glowing skin, her calm expression, the way the planet itself seemed to answer her steps. Something in their hearts shifted. The stories they had grown up with, the warnings about radiation and death, felt suddenly fragile, like old shadows under a new sun. For the first time, they wondered if humans were not just explorers. Perhaps they were something more. Vaer could no longer deny it. He looked at Aaron, and in his eyes there was fear but also respect. "What are you, human?" he whispered. Aaron smiled faintly, her voice carrying across the wind. "I am only what my people have always been. Survivors." And with that, she walked deeper into the desert, following the glowing ruins, as though guided by an invisible hand. The crew had no choice but to follow, even as their instincts screamed to turn back. For they knew, deep inside, that whatever awaited them in the heart of this forbidden world was a truth too great to ignore. And Aaron had already begun to awaken it. The desert wind whispered like a living thing. Red dust moved in waves across the stone plains, and every step Aaron took made the ground shimmer faintly. The aliens followed behind her, their heavy suits creaking, their helmets filled with warning signals. None of them could understand how she walked so freely, but none could leave her either. The ruins grew taller the further they traveled. At first, they were broken pillars half buried in sand. Then they became towering structures, cracked but still standing, their surfaces etched with glowing patterns. The carvings pulsed faintly as if a heartbeat traveled through the stone. One of the alien scientists, Nero, adjusted his scanner nervously. "The energy readings are beyond anything recorded. These ruins are not dead, they are active. And somehow, they react more strongly whenever she is near." Vaer, the captain, marched with heavy steps. His voice was sharp, but there was a trace of unease in it. "Machines or monuments, they should have decayed long ago. Yet they wait for her. Why?" The crew had no answer. Their eyes kept returning to Aaron. She moved lightly, without fear, her face calm in the burning air. Where they saw danger, she saw beauty. Where they felt death, she felt warmth. At last, they reached a wide plaza at the center of the ruins. A giant circle of stone lay in the ground, carved with lines that radiated outward like rays of a star. Around the circle stood tall spires, each humming with quiet power. Aaron walked to the center and stood still. The dust swirled around her feet, and the carvings lit up one by one, spreading outward like ripples in water. The aliens froze. The ruins were responding as though they had been waiting for her arrival. "This is not possible," whispered Tal, staring at the glowing lines. "The builders of this world, did they know humans would come here?" Aaron looked around slowly, her hand brushing one of the glowing lines. "Maybe they were not so different from us," she said softly. "Maybe they were like us, born under a sky that tried to destroy them. Maybe they built this place for someone who would understand." Her words sank into the hearts of the crew. The aliens exchanged nervous glances. For generations, they had believed humans were reckless and fragile. Yet here was proof that humans carried something the galaxy had underestimated. Nero's voice trembled. Captain, if she can survive what kills the rest of us, then what else are humans capable of? Vader did not answer. He watched Aaron closely, his mind heavy with conflicting thoughts. She was one human, but already she was reshaping everything he believed. Suddenly, the air thickened. The humming of the spires grew louder, and the circle beneath Aaron's feet glowed brighter. The ground vibrated, sending fine dust rising into the air. The alien stumbled back in fear. "It is awakening something," cried Nero. But Aaron did not move away. Her eyes shone with curiosity, not fear. She knelt and placed her palm flat against the circle. A deep pulse moved through the ground, not harmful but powerful, like the steady beat of a heart. The ruins answered her touch. The spires lit up fully, sending pillars of light into the red sky. The plaza shone like a rising star, its energy flowing around Aaron as if she were part of it. The aliens shielded their eyes. "We must return to the ship," Tal shouted. "No," Aaron said, her voice firm but calm. "This is not danger. It is memory." She closed her eyes, and the plaza seemed to show her visions. Brief flashes of shapes filled her mind, tall beings walking the desert long ago, their skin glowing like her own under the burning sky. They built towers, carved symbols, and left behind machines that could endure the radiation. And then, silence. Their kind had vanished, but their world had waited. Aaron gasped softly as the vision ended. She opened her eyes, her face pale but determined. They lived here once. A people who thrived where others could not. They built all this to last forever. And now, it answers me. The alien stood frozen, unsure what to say. Vader finally spoke, his voice low. "You mean to tell me, humans are heirs to this place?" "Not heirs," Aaron replied. "But kin. We were shaped by the same kind of fire. This world knows me because it remembers them." Silence followed her words. The wind died down, and the glowing plaza dimmed slowly, as if resting again after its brief awakening. The alien stared at her with new eyes. Fear remained, but it was no longer simple fear of death. It was awe, the kind of awe that comes when old truths begin to break. Tal whispered what all of them were thinking. If humans can survive this, if they carry the strength of ancient worlds, then what role will they play in the future of the galaxy? Aaron looked at the horizon, where the red desert stretched endlessly under the blazing sun. Her voice was calm, but in it was a promise: whatever the galaxy believes, humanity will not break. Not here. Not anywhere. And as she spoke, the ruins gave one last faint pulse of light, as though agreeing with her words. The plaza was still glowing faintly when the crew of the Solace returned to the landing platform. Their minds were filled with questions, but no one spoke much. Even the hum of the ship's engines felt quieter than usual. Aaron walked at the front, her steps light, her face calm. She carried no fear, even though she had touched power that none of them understood. The aliens behind her whispered among themselves, but always in low voices, as though the ruins might still be listening. When they reached the ship, the captain gave the order to lift off. The Solace rose slowly into the air, carrying them above the glowing desert and the ancient spires. But as they entered the higher sky, alarms began to sound. "Multiple signals," cried Tal, his hands flying across the controls. "Ships incoming. Not ours." The viewing screens flickered, showing sharp lights appearing from the void beyond the planet's atmosphere. One, then two, then dozens. Dark vessels with long wings and bright red engines moved into formation. The aliens in the crew tensed. Their voices filled the cabin with fear. "Those ships, they are not explorers. They are hunters." Captain Vader's face grew dark. "They must have been listening to the same signal we heard. The ruins called them too." The fleet closed in quickly, surrounding the Solace. The newcomers sent no greetings, no words of peace. Their weapons hummed with energy, ready to strike. Aaron stepped forward, her voice steady. They came for the ruins. They know what sleeps on this world. And they fear that humans have touched it. Her calmness unsettled the crew even more than the enemy ships. How could she stand so steady when they faced an entire fleet? The main screen flickered again. A face appeared, sharp and cold. The alien leader had skin like gray stone and eyes like burning coal. His voice was deep, carrying no kindness. You should not be here, he said. This world belongs to no one. It is sealed, forbidden. Leave now or be destroyed. Vader raised his head, keeping his voice steady. We are explorers. We mean no harm. The ruins woke on their own. The stone-skinned leader's eyes narrowed. Do not lie. We saw the human. We saw the glow. This world knows your kind. That is a danger we cannot allow. The crew exchanged anxious looks. None of them had told the strangers about Aaron. Yet somehow, the fleet already knew. Aaron stepped closer to the screen, her face calm. You fear us, she said simply. The alien leader's eyes flashed. Humans are reckless creatures. You walk where you should not. You survive where no one else can. If this world accepts you, then the galaxy will never be safe. Better to end you now before you spread. A heavy silence filled the cabin. The threat was clear. The crew looked to their captain, waiting for his command. But Vader only looked at Aaron. For the first time, he felt truly caught between two paths. Aaron did not wait for orders. She turned her gaze to the enemy fleet, her voice carrying a quiet strength. You think destruction will stop us. But you do not understand humans. We do not break so easily. We find light in the dark. We build homes where no life should exist. And we endure. Her words echoed through the cabin, reaching every ear. Even the crew, frightened as they were, felt something stir in their hearts. The alien leader growled. Empty words. You cannot fight us. At that moment, the ruins below gave another pulse of light. The red desert glowed faintly, and pillars of energy shot into the sky. The enemy ships faltered, their formation breaking as the planet itself seemed to roar against them. Aaron stood tall, her eyes fixed on the glowing horizon. This world remembers those who came before. It remembers strength. And it has not forgotten us. The crew of the Solace stared as the ancient spires began to awaken fully. Streams of light rose from the surface, circling the ship like shields. The energy was not harmful, it was protective, wrapping around them like the hand of a guardian. The enemy fleet hesitated. For the first time, the stone-skinned leader's expression cracked, showing unease. His voice grew harsher, almost desperate. This power should not answer to you. It was never meant for humans. But the truth was before them. The ruins had slept for ages, waiting for someone who could stand in their light. And it was Aaron, the human, who had awakened them. Captain Vader finally spoke, his voice heavy but proud. You see now. The galaxy will not belong only to those who fear. It will belong to those who endure. The enemy ships tightened their formation again, preparing for battle. But none could deny what they had witnessed. Inside the cabin, the crew felt both fear and hope. They were outnumbered, surrounded, but not alone. For the first time, they believed the ruins themselves were on their side. Aaron's eyes shone with determination. If they want to test humanity, then let them come. We will show them what it means to face survivors. The plaza below glowed brighter, as though the planet itself agreed with her words. And above the silent world, the first standoff began. The sky above the red desert shimmered with light. The alien fleet circled like hawks, weapons armed, their red engines cutting across the horizon. Yet the ruins below glowed with power, casting tall shadows that reached toward the heavens. Inside the Solace, the crew stared at their screens. The enemy ships were many, far more than their single vessel could resist. But the ruins, those ancient structures, were no longer silent. Streams of light wrapped around the human researcher, Aaron, as if she were part of them. Captain Vader stood at the front, his voice low. They are afraid. That is why they came. They know what this world hides. Aaron's eyes remained fixed on the glowing desert below. She spoke softly, yet her words carried across the cabin. They are not just afraid of this world. They are afraid of us. The crew turned to her, uneasy. Aaron closed her eyes, and once again she felt that deep hum, the pulse of memory flowing from the ruins into her very bones. It was not pain. It was not harm. It was knowledge, like pages of a story opening in her mind. Images filled her vision, vast skies, towering structures, and beings of light walking across the red sands. They were not human, but they were not entirely alien either. Their forms were strong, their skin glowing faintly as hers had begun to glow. They lived with the radiation, not against it. They drank the silver lakes, walked the burning deserts, and raised children under a sun that other species feared. She saw their battles too. A great enemy had come, dark ships like those now circling in the sky. The same stone-skinned race, younger then but just as ruthless. They wanted to erase the people of this world, to keep such strength from spreading across the galaxy. The war was long. Many of the glowing ones fell, but they did not fall quietly. They built weapons that shone like stars, machines hidden within their ruins, and a beacon that carried warnings across the stars. In the end, they vanished. But their memory remained, buried in stone, waiting for someone who shared their nature to awaken it. Aaron gasped and staggered, her hand gripping the edge of a console. Aaron, cried Nero, rushing to steady her. What is it? What did you see? Her voice trembled, but her eyes burned with certainty. I saw them. The people who lived here. They were, like us. Not the same, but close. They survived where others could not. They fought this enemy before. And they won. The cabin fell into silence. Every alien stared at her, their thoughts heavy. Captain Vader finally spoke, his tone sharp. Are you saying humans share blood with these beings? Aaron shook her head slowly. Not blood. But spirit. We were shaped under fire too. Our sun was young and wild. Our world gave us storms, quakes, poisons. We learned to adapt, to bend, but not break. That is why I can stand here when you cannot. That is why this world knows me. Tal's hands trembled as he adjusted his scanner. If what you say is true, then humanity carries the same strength that once stopped the enemy. That is why they fear you. The crew turned to the viewing screen again. The stone-skinned fleet moved like predators, but for the first time, their leader looked unsettled. His eyes burned, but behind them was unease. He had seen the ruins light for Aaron. He had seen the planet itself answer her. Aaron drew a deep breath and stepped toward the screen. You tried to erase them once, she said, her voice calm but strong. But you failed. Their memory is alive in us. You cannot erase what survives. The leader snarled, his stone-like face tightening. You are children. You know nothing of what was lost. Aaron lifted her chin. Perhaps. But children grow. And when they do, they inherit the fire of those who came before. Her words carried weight beyond the cabin. The ruins glowed brighter, as though agreeing. For a moment, the enemy ship seemed smaller, their red light paling in the face of the rising energy from the planet. The aliens of the Solace shifted uneasily. They had joined this mission thinking humans were fragile, reckless explorers. Now they realized they were standing beside something much greater. Nero whispered, almost to himself, humans are not simply wanderers, they are inheritors. Captain Vader's silver eyes narrowed. If that is true, then this conflict is not only about survival. It is about destiny. Outside, the enemy fleet grew restless. Their weapons charged, but their formation wavered. The leader knew the truth as well as they did: if humanity carried the legacy of the glowing ones, then the galaxy was about to change forever. Erin stood tall, her skin still faintly lit by the desert's strange energy. Her voice rang clear in the silence. This world has given us its memory. Now we must decide what to do with it. Hide, or stand. The crew looked at one another, fear and awe mixed in their eyes. And in that moment, they understood that the choice ahead was not only Erin's. It was humanity's. The ruins pulsed once more, the ground below sending a wave of light into the sky. The desert seemed alive, and the message it carried was clear: the old war was not over. The desert below glowed like a furnace. The spires pulsed brighter, and the circle at the heart of the ruins beat like a living heart. The crew of the Solace stood frozen at their stations, staring at the screens. Above them, the enemy fleet hovered in a sharp formation, their weapons ready, their engines burning red. It was a silence made of tension, like the pause before a storm. Captain Vader's voice broke that silence. Shields at full strength. Engines ready. We may not escape, but we will not bow. The alien crew moved quickly, though fear made their hands shake. They had never stood against so many ships before. And they knew the Solace alone could not win this battle. Erin, standing near the viewport, watched calmly. Her skin still carried a faint glow from the ruins, as though the planet itself had marked her. They will attack soon, she said softly. But they do not understand. We are not alone. As if answering her words, the ruins pulsed again. The sand shifted, rolling away like waves. Shapes began to rise from beneath the desert, massive structures of stone and metal, buried for ages. Their surfaces glowed with the same lines as the plaza, and their forms resembled towers, wings, and sharp blades. Tal gasped as his scanner lit with impossible readings. Machines, no, guardians. The builders left weapons hidden under the sands. They were sleeping all this time. The ancient machines stood taller than mountains, their bodies made of glowing stone and silver metal. They turned slowly, their eyes burning with white light, and raised their arms toward the sky. The enemy fleet broke formation, their ships scattering in alarm. The stone-skinned leader appeared again on the screen, his voice filled with rage. Those weapons belong to no one. They should not awaken. Erin met his gaze calmly. They awaken for survivors. They awaken for us. The first beam of light shot from the desert, striking upward with the brightness of a newborn star. It passed through the formation of enemy ships, forcing them to scatter further. The energy did not miss, it struck with precision, tearing one of the ships apart in a silent burst of fire. The crew of the Solace stared in awe. They had seen weapons before, but nothing like this. These guardians were not merely tools of war, they were the will of the planet itself. Vader's voice was steady, but his silver eyes shone with awe. We stand protected by the memory of an ancient people. The galaxy will never forget this day. The enemy leader roared, his stone-like face twisted with fury. You cannot inherit their power. You are nothing but reckless wanderers. Erin shook her head. You are wrong. We are what they were. We are what you fear, life that endures. The guardians answered her words with another strike. Beams of light crossed the sky, weaving between the ships. One after another, enemy vessels broke apart, their wrecks falling like burning stars. The fleet fired back, their weapons red and furious. Bolts of energy rained down toward the ruins. But the spires pulsed, forming a shimmering shield across the desert. The beams dissolved into harmless sparks before touching the ground. Inside the Solace, the crew watched the impossible battle unfold. They felt their fear fade, replaced by something new: hope. They had thought themselves helpless, but now they stood beside a human who carried the fire of forgotten worlds. Nero whispered, his voice trembling, She is the key. The planet listens to her. Without her, the Guardians would not have woken. Vader nodded slowly. Then humanity carries more than survival. They carry the power to awaken what others left behind. The enemy fleet began to retreat, their numbers broken. The leader's face returned to the screen, his voice filled with hate. This changes nothing. We will return. We will not allow your kind to rise. Aaron stepped closer, her eyes shining. You cannot stop us. Every world you fear, every place you abandon, we will claim. We will turn death into life. That is what it means to be human. Her words struck deeper than the beams of light. Even the crew of the Solace felt shivers run through them. For they knew her promise was not empty, it was truth. The ruins pulsed one last time, sending a wave of energy across the desert. The enemy fleet, broken and scattered, vanished into the dark sky. Silence returned, but it was not the same silence as before. It was the silence of victory. The Guardians slowly lowered their arms, their eyes dimming. The sand began to cover them again, as though they were returning to sleep until they were needed once more. Erin placed her hand against the viewport glass, watching the desert glow fade into stillness. They are not gone, she said quietly. They wait. And they trust us to carry their legacy. The crew turned to her, their eyes filled with something new: respect. They had doubted her, feared her, even thought her reckless. But now they knew. Captain Vader bowed his head slightly, his voice solemn. The galaxy will remember what happened here. And it will remember humanity not as intruders, but as survivors. Erin's glow faded slowly, but her calm smile remained. She whispered, almost to herself, survivors, and builders of what comes next. The desert rested again, but the future had already shifted. The red desert lay quiet beneath a calm sky. The glowing spires and pillars of the ancient ruins had returned to sleep, hidden once more beneath the sands. The enemy fleet had vanished, broken and scattered, leaving the Solace and its crew alone. Inside the ship, the crew moved in silence. None spoke at first, not because of fear, but because they were thinking. They had witnessed something beyond understanding. They had watched the power of a forgotten people awaken, guided by a human. And they had survived. Erin stood at the viewport, her eyes resting on the horizon. The glow of her skin had faded, but a faint warmth remained, as if the desert itself had left a mark upon her. She felt the heartbeat of the ruins still beneath the sand, steady and patient, waiting for those who could inherit their memory. Captain Vader approached her. His face, always so calm and disciplined, now showed something new: respect, wonder, and maybe even a little fear. You did not just survive, he said softly. You awakened something no one else could. That power, that world, it listens to you. Erin shook her head slightly. It does not listen to me alone, she replied. It listens to all of us. It responds to those who understand its purpose. Nero stepped closer, still in awe. The enemy, they feared you, he said. Not because of the weapons, not because of the ruins, but because of you. Humanity carries something they cannot destroy. Erin smiled faintly. Perhaps they underestimated what humans endure. Our strength is not only in our bodies. It is in our spirit, our willingness to face the impossible and keep going. The crew looked at one another, realizing the truth in her words. They had been trained for danger, prepared for space, ready for battle. But what they had seen was different. They had seen humans awaken power long forgotten, power that could shape the galaxy. Outside, the desert shimmered faintly, almost as if it were breathing. The ancient guardians remained hidden, yet their presence was felt in every pulse of light, every gentle hum of the sand. They had not left. They had only returned to watch, waiting for the next moment they would be needed. Erin turned to the captain. This world, it has given us more than protection. It has given us a warning and a choice. The galaxy will not wait for us to prove ourselves. But now we know we can stand against what comes. Vader nodded, his voice heavy with understanding. And we will. Humanity will not be fragile. We will claim what others believe impossible. The alien crew exchanged glances. Fear had not vanished entirely, but it had changed. It was no longer the fear of death, it was the fear of being outmatched. For the first time, they saw humans not as reckless wanderers but as a species that could endure, adapt, and conquer where others could not. Erin walked toward the landing platform, her steps light but confident. She looked once more at the glowing ruins, feeling their presence beneath her feet. The builders of this world fought and survived, she said. We carry that same spark. And now, it is our turn to shape the future. As the Solace lifted into orbit, the desert below seemed to stretch endlessly, vast and powerful. It was no longer a warning, it was a promise. A promise that humanity had inherited something extraordinary. Something that could not be ignored. The stars beyond the planet sparkled brightly, and Erin gazed at them with steady eyes. Somewhere out there, other civilizations would watch and wonder. They would see humans rising in places thought impossible. And they would remember that this species, small and fragile at first glance, carried the fire of forgotten worlds. Captain Vader joined her, looking out over the endless red desert. The galaxy will speak of this day, he said quietly. Of the human who awakened ancient power and stood unafraid against impossible odds. Erin nodded. Let them watch. Let them remember. We are not fragile. We are survivors. And this is only the beginning. In the distance, the ruins pulsed faintly one last time, as if agreeing with her words. The guardians beneath the sand remained ready, waiting for the day they would awaken again. And the desert, once feared as death itself, had become a symbol of endurance and possibility. The crew of the Solace knew that their mission had changed. They had not only explored a world, they had discovered humanity's place in the galaxy. A place not of weakness, but of strength. Not of fear, but of courage. And as the ship sailed through the stars, leaving the red desert behind, one thing was clear, the galaxy would never again underestimate humans. For humans endure. Humans adapt. And humans will rise wherever others fear to tread. The legacy of the ancient world was now in their hands. And humanity was ready.